The Hope of the Redoran by Turiel Nerith. One of the few magical arts of the Sijiks of Artaeum have kept to themselves, away from the common spells and schools of the Mages Guild, is the gift of divination. Despite this, or perhaps because of it, omens and prophecies abound in Tamriel, some of substance, others of pure folly, and still others so ambiguous as to be unverifiable. There are still other prophecies kept secret, from the prophecies of Drogizad and elsewhere, and the Nerevarine in Morrowind, to the Elder Scrolls themselves. The Nord nobility have a tradition of having omens read for their children. In general, these readings are of the obscure variety. One of my acquaintances told me that her parents were told, for example, that their daughter would have her life rescued by a snake, and so gave her the name Serpentkin in a special ceremony. This young lady, Aria Valcor Serpentkin, was indeed saved by a snake many years later, when an assassin creeping on her stepped on a Donsware worm viper. Occasionally, omens seem to be almost purposefully misleading, as if Boethia had crafted them as traps. I recall one particularly. Many, many years ago, a male child was born into House Redoran. It was a very difficult birth, and the mother was delirious and near death by the time it was over. She chanted just as her son came into the world, and she passed from it. Fortune has smiled this day, not frowned. My child will be mighty in mind and in arm. He shall bring hope to House Redoran. Neither spell nor blade shall hurt the man, nor illness nor poison cause any harm. His blood shall never drop on the ground. The boy, named Andis, was indeed extraordinary. He never was ill, and never suffered so much as a scratch all through his childhood. He was also quite intelligent and strong, which, combined with his invulnerability, caused many to call him, after his mother's omen, the Hope of the Redoran. Of course, anyone who is called the Hope of Redoran will eventually develop some taint of impertinence, and it wasn't long before he had enemies. His worst enemy was his cousin, Athin, who had borne much abuse at the hands of Andis. Primary among the grudges was that Athin had been sent to Rihad to complete his education at Andis's insistence. When Athin returned from Hammerfell, it was because of the death of his father, who had also been a counselor of the house. Athin was old enough to take his seat in the council, but Andis claimed the seat as well, saying that his cousin had been gone too long from Morrowind and didn't understand politics as he did. The majority of the house agreed with Andis, wanting to see the Hope of Redoran rise quickly. Athin exercised his right to combat his cousin for the seat. No one thought he had any chance of winning, of course, but the battle was scheduled to commence the following morn. Andis whored and dined and drank with the counselors that night, confident that his place in the house was secured and the hopeful new dawn of House Redoran was rising. Athin retired to his castle with his friends, Andis's enemies, and his servants he had brought from Hammerfell. Athin and his friends were discussing the duel morosely when one of his old teachers, a warrior called Shardi, came into the hall. She had grown quite proud of her student over the years in Hammerfell, proud enough to accompany him across the Empire to his family's lands, and wanted to know why they had so little confidence in his odds in the battle. They explained to her Andis's uncommon blessings and the nature of his mother's omen. If he can't be harmed by disease, poison, magica, and his blood can never be spilled, what hope have I of ever besting him? Cried Athin. Have you remembered nothing I taught you? Replied Shardi. Is there no weapon you can think of that will slay without blood? Are swords and spears and arrows the only items in your arsenal? Athin quickly realized the weapon Shardi was speaking of, but it seemed absurd. Not only absurd, but pathetic and primitive. Still, it was the only hope he had. All that night, Shardi trained him in the art and techniques, showing him the various swings and stances her people had developed in Albion Gora, counterattacks, feints, and blocks imported from Yokuda, the classic one- and two-handed grips for the most ancient weapon in history. The cousins faced one another in the morning, and never have two combatants looked so unevenly matched. Andis's entrance brought a great cheer, for not only was he much beloved as the hope of the Redoran, but as his victory was a foregone conclusion, most wanted him to be in good standing with him. His shining mail and blade drew admiration and awe. By contrast, Athin drew a gasp of surprise and only a smattering of polite applause. He appeared costumed and armed like a barbarian. As Shardi had suggested, Athin allowed Andis to attack first. The hope of the Redoran was eager to finish the battle and take the power he deserved quickly. The blade pushed by Andis's mighty arm slashed across Athin's chest, but shallowly, and before it could be counterswung, Athin knocked it back with his own weapon. When Athin attacked and wounded Andis, the hope of Redoran was so surprised by being hurt for the first time in his life, he dropped his sword. The less said about the end of the battle, the better. Suffice it to say that Athin, wielding a simple club, battered Andis to death without spilling a drop of blood. Athin took his father's seat as counselor, and it was then said that the hope in the omen referred to Athin, not Andis. After all, had Andis not tried to take the counselor's seat away from his cousin, Athin, being not very ambitious, might have never tried to get it. It can certainly be argued that way, I suppose.